Know what Republican family values are. What Republican family values are telling every woman here tonight and every woman in America that she does not have the right to control her own body. I disagree. What Republican family values are is telling our gay brothers and sisters they do not have the right to get married. We disagree. Now, in 6 days, my wife Jane and I will have been married 28 years. Very deep trouble if I forget that anniversary. So if you come to one of my rallies on the 28th, please remind me. But Jane and I, we believe in family values, but not Republican family values. And what we believe in is that the United States should end the international embarrassment of being the only major country on earth that does not guarantee paid family and medical leave. I want you to think about this all over the world, in wealthy countries and actually in poorer countries. All of these people, all of these governments understand that when a mom has a baby, she should be able to stay home with that baby, get to know the baby, get to love the baby. And yet today, all over this country, if you are a working class woman who gives birth to a beautiful baby, you may be forced to go back to work in a week, 2 weeks, because you need the income to take care of your family. That is not a family value, that is the opposite of a family value. That is why together we are going to pass legislation that guarantees 3 months paid family and medical leave. A great nation is not judged by how many billionaires it has or by how many nuclear weapons it has. A great nation is judged by how it treats the weakest and most vulnerable among us. Today in California, in Vermont, and all over this country, there are millions of seniors and disabled veterans and people with disabilities who are trying to survive on $10,000, $11,000 a year in Social Security. And if you can believe it, and it is true, many Republicans think that is too much. They want to cut Social Security. Some very bad news for those Republicans. We are not going to cut Social Security. We are not going to cut the benefits that our veterans have deserved. We are going to expand Social Security. A great nation does not turn its back on our parents and our grandparents, the people who built this country. That is not what we do. We don't turn our backs on the men and women who fought to defend this country. This campaign is listening to young people. I I want you to think outside of the box for a minute, outside of the options that corporate media gives to you. Think for a second. You all know, it's a no-brainer, that we are living in an increasingly competitive global economy. We need the best educated workforce in the world. Everybody knows that. And everybody knows that the economy has changed, that technology has changed, and that people today need more education than was the case 30 or 40 years ago. That's just a fact. In my view, when we talk about public education today, it is not good enough just to talk about first grade through 12th grade. That was great 50 years ago. Today, when we talk about public education, we must be including making public colleges and universities tuition free. As a nation, we should be encouraging all of our people, no matter what their age, to get as much education as they can. We should be rewarding people for getting an education, not punishing people. And I want you to think about this. I grew up in a family that did not have a lot of money. My parents never went to college. And there are kids right now in Irvine, throughout this country, in the 4th grade and the 6th grade, who are living in low-income families. Their parents never went to college. They don't know anybody who went to college. I want those children and their parents and their teachers to know that if those kids study hard and do well in school, regardless of the income of those families, they will be able to get a higher education. People here are dealing with student debt. There's a lot of people. I've been all over this country and I have seen thousands and thousands of people dealing with student debt as high as $400,000. A woman in my own city went to medical school. She's now working with low-income people doing great work. $300,000 in debt. So a kid in Iowa dropped out after 2 years, $60,000 in debt. Got a guy in Nevada, he has been in debt for 25 years. He's more in debt today than he was when he took out the loan in the first place. That is why I believe that people with student debt should be able to refinance those loans at the lowest interest rate they can find. Now, here is what thinking outside of the box is about. People say to me, my critics say, my opponent says, the establishment media says, Bernie, you're Santa Claus. You're giving away free tuition. Public college, you're going to lower student debt. How are you going to pay for it? Well, let me tell you exactly how we are going to pay for it. 8 years ago, against my vote, Congress bailed out Wall Street. Today, Wall Street is doing just fine. I believe that we need to impose a tax on Wall Street speculation. Which will bring in more than enough money to make public colleges and universities tuition free and lower substantially student debt. This campaign is listening to the Latino community. 11 million undocumented people in this country today. And let us be clear, some of those people are being exploited every day on the job, because if you don't have legal rights to stand up, your employer can rip you off. Those people are being underpaid and they are being cheated. We need in this country comprehensive immigration reform and a path toward citizenship. And if Congress does not do its job in fixing a broken immigration system, I will use the executive powers of the presidency to do more. We must also end the current policies on deportation. Our job is to unite families, not to break them up. This campaign is listening to our African American brothers and sisters. And they are asking, how does it happen that we have had trillions of dollars to spend on a war in Iraq that we never should have gotten into? That somehow we don't have the funds to rebuild our crumbling inner cities. I have been to Flint, Michigan, where children were poisoned by drinking water with excessive amounts of lead in it. I have been to Detroit, where their public school system is on the verge of fiscal collapse. I have been to Baltimore, Maryland, where tens of thousands of people are addicted to heroin and can't get treatment. Together, we are going to change our national priorities. Instead of rebuilding the infrastructure of Afghanistan, we're going to rebuild the inner cities of this This campaign is listening to a people whose pain is almost never heard, and that is the Native American community. I have talked to tribal leaders in every part of this country, and I hope all of you appreciate that the debt we owe to the Native American people is so great that it can never actually ever be paid off. The painful truth is that even before this country became a country, when the first settlers came here, the Native American people were lied to, they were cheated, and the treaties they signed were broken. But the truth is that despite all of that, what the Native American people have given to us is a culture that has transformed this country. They have taught us so much, and maybe the most important lesson that they have taught us, a lesson that we cannot afford not to heed, is that as human beings, we are part of nature. We must live with nature. And that if we continue to destroy nature, we are destroying ourselves. And yet, despite all that the Native American people, the first Americans, have given us, today their economic conditions in many parts of this country is just awful. I was in the Pine Ridge Reservation a couple of weeks ago in South Dakota. Conditions there are worse than in many third world countries. Life expectancy for men on that reservation is 58 years of age. Most of the children are dropping out of school. Suicide rate among the young people is horrifically high. Healthcare system totally inadequate. And that is true in many Native American communities throughout this country. If elected president, we will change our relationship to the Native American people. When we begin to think outside of the box, we ask some important questions. And one of the key questions we ask is, how does it happen that in America today, we are the only major country not to guarantee health care to all people? Now, the Affordable Care Act, which I voted for, has done some good things. But today in America, 29 million people today have zero health insurance. Many of you are underinsured with high deductibles and high copayments. And every person here and every American is being ripped off unconscionably by the greed of the drug companies. Drug companies are charging us by far the highest prices in the world for the medicine we need, and yet the top 6 drug companies last year made over $50 billion in profit. Now let me be as honest and straightforward with you as I can be. I believe from the depths of my soul that health care must be a right of all people, not a privilege. We lose many thousands of people every year because they don't get to the doctor when they should, because they don't have health insurance or they can't pay the deductibles. That is wrong. I want everybody, whether they are young or old, rich or poor, inner city or rural America, to know that they will be able to go to the doctor when they need to go to the doctor. And I want people to know that if they end up in the hospital, they will not have to pay off hundreds of thousands of dollars in dental costs. The time is now for us to tell the private insurance industry that the function of healthcare is not to make them excessive profits. Together, we will join the rest of the industrialized world and pass a Medicare for all single-payer system. Everybody here understands a very profound lesson, and that is that real change never takes place from the top on down. It always takes place from the bottom on up. When workers 100+ years ago were working 7 days a week and 12 hours a day and had no rights, when children in Vermont and California were working in factories and losing their hands on machinery that was dangerous. What working people said is, you know what? We are human beings. We demand dignity, and we are going to form trade unions to protect the interests of working people. And millions of workers came together and helped to create the modern American middle class, and we thank them for that. Amidst, at the time of the abomination of slavery, we had African Americans and their allies looking to the future and saying that the day will come in America where we will rid this country of racism and bigotry and segregation. And we will never know the names of those people who died in that struggle, who went to jail in that struggle, who lost their jobs for standing up for civil rights and human dignity. But people stood up, they fought back. 100 years ago, and the children don't know this, 100 years ago in America, women did not have the right to vote, could not get the jobs or the education they wanted 100 years ago. But women stood up and said to the establishment, you will not define us. You will not. Tell us that our job is to stay home and have babies. We will define ourselves. And women and their male allies fought together by the millions to say that in America, women will not be second-class citizens. Change happens. Change happens when, in recent history, with great courage, the gay community and their straight allies taking on incredible homophobia and bigotry, gay community stood up and said, you know what, in this country, people should have the right to love whoever they want, regardless of their gender. And today, despite the strong hatred and homophobia that remains, gay marriage is now legal in 50 states. If we were here 5 years ago and somebody jumped up and said, you know, Bernie, the $7.25 an hour federal minimum wage is a starvation wage, we've got to raise it to $15 an hour, the person next to her would have said, you're crazy. You want to double the minimum wage, you want to go from 7.25 to 15, you're thinking too big, you're too radical. That's what people would have said. Maybe $9, maybe $10, 15, too much. But you know what happened? Think about it. Workers in the fast food industry, in McDonald's, in Burger King, in Wendy's, you know what they did? They went out on strike.
Yeah!
And I am very proud to have demonstrated with those workers.
Yeah!
And they said to their neighbors, and they said to this country, we can't live on $7.25 an hour. And then what happened a few years ago in Seattle, Washington? $15 an hour was passed. In Los Angeles, in San Francisco, in California, and in New York. In other words, what happened is something that people 10 years ago, 5 years ago, never believed could have happened. Real change took place. And that is the history of America. When people stand up and fight back, real change takes place. Now, I've been all over this country. We've talked to over 1.2 million people in gatherings like this. And what I have heard from coast to coast now is that people are beginning to look around them and go beyond the options that the media or the Congress is giving us. And they are beginning to understand that the choices that we face are not whether we cut food stamps or education or environmental protection. The choices that we face are whether we demand the wealthy and large corporations to start paying their fair share of taxes. And people are asking themselves, they're now beginning to think about it. Why does it happen in this country that the middle class continues to disappear while almost all new income and wealth goes to the top 1%? Why is that happening? Why does it happen that in California, in Vermont, and all over this country, we have 20% of our children living in poverty? Why does it happen that young people graduate school deeply in debt and others just can't afford to get the education they need? Why does it happen that we are not more aggressive in dealing with the global crisis of climate change? Why are we not telling the fossil fuel industry that their short-term profits are not more important than the future of this planet? Our infrastructure is disappearing and our inner cities are crumbling? Why is it that we are the only major country on earth not to guarantee paid family and medical leave and health care to all? And all over this country, people are beginning to ask those questions. And what this campaign is about is bringing people together to demand that we have a government that represents all of us, not just the people of us. That we create a government that does not cut Social Security or give tax breaks to billionaires, but addresses the pain of the American working class and middle class. There is nothing that I have said this evening that is not supported by the vast majority of the American people. Nothing is radical. But together, we have got to create a government that listens to us, not just wealthy campaign contributors. And that is what this campaign is about. Now, on June 7th, there is going to be, as you know, a primary here in California. 475 delegates are at stake. If there is a large voter turnout, we will win a strong majority of votes. Let us see California having the largest voter turnout in Democratic primary history. Let this great state, one of the most progressive states in America, tell the world you're going to lead us into the political revolution.